stick with me on this. I've got a few things coming up in this video. I've got some clips. I've got some exclusive footage, funny enough, from Upton Park that I filmed for myself, for my own personal use. I've got some Canning Town Lens stuff coming up as well. So bear with me while I just talk about something now. About older players, about players that you've not seen play before your era. I've got to be honest with you, I've always struggled with it a little bit. I know other people older than me love them, I get that. But I struggle to fully attach myself to it because I never saw them play. And that's true for the generation before me, it's true for my generation. I think it's going to be true for the next one as well. In terms of West Ham, my old man was always telling me that Geoff Hurst, he used to say, Geoff Hurst, best passer of the ball with his head he's ever seen. You know, basically, he was just, Geoff Hurst could pass the ball with his head like other people could with their feet. Ever so accurate. I got it. I understood what he was saying. It wasn't lack of comprehension. I'd see the 1966 Cup final. I get it. Brilliant. Hat trick. Some people on the pitch, I think it's all over it is now. I understand the whole lot. An iconic player for England, an iconic player for West Ham. But he wasn't my player. So even though I'm pretty sure he was better than Frank McAvenny, to me he wasn't Frank McAvenny. Because I didn't see him play. And I think a lot of that is the same for everybody. So when, I wonder what people think when they see, you know, the Billy Bond stand, for instance. I think fans, younger fans, they know it probably should be done. Because they know the players they are watching will hopefully be remembered well in folklore, although not as much because the people don't stick around, the players don't stick around like they used to. But I remember Billy Bonds, and Billy Bonds was an absolutely fantastic player. But it's so hard for people that didn't see him to attach to him. What sort of a player was he? What did he do? Particularly his footage was so rare then. I mean, let's say your favourite player. I'm talking to very young people now. Let's say your favourite player, the best player you've ever seen play for West Ham, is Dimitri Payet. Now, fast forward 20 years, and you want to tell your children how good Dimitri Payet was, it's going to be a doddle for you. You got YouTube. At the point when Payet was playing, Sky were covering it, BT were covering it, NBC were covering it in the States. What's it called? Bein TV. I can't remember what they're called, but you know, it was covered by a lot of television stations. Not only that, the footage is beautiful. It's in HD. It's in Ultra HD. You can show and demonstrate exactly how good Dimitri Payet was. For the older players, you can't do that. Not many games were televised. There used to be something I used to watch on ITV, the match, but one game a week. Yes, you would get your match of the day, but there wasn't much around. There wasn't a lot of footage. A lot of people's favourite goals and a lot of the stuff that people's favourite players from back in the day, the things that they watched, the things that they enjoyed, were never archived. They're just not on film. So it's a story. It's an anecdote. The time they saw Alan Devonshire jinkily run past 5 players or whatever the case may be. And this is really my point because Canning Town Lens made a film, as you probably know. Canning Town Lens has asked me to do a video about the film. And I said to him, what do you want me to talk about? He said, just want you to watch it and then just talk about it. I said, any pointers? He said, no. He said, just do what you want. So I've looked at it. I've watched the film twice now. And I think what it means to me is what I've just tried to describe. And I don't, not all of them for me, because I saw a lot of these guys play. He's not vastly older than me at Canning Town Len. But I think what it might do is the people that didn't see Alan Devonshire, didn't see Trevor Brooking, Ray Stewart, Crossy, a lot of the player, Phil Parks was my first ever autograph was Phil Parks. A lot of the players that you might have heard of, this is going to allow you to attach you with the club. And when I was looking through it, the film, there are so many iconic images in there that will remind you of Green Street, the Bow Inn, the pub I'm talking about, not just Upton Park itself, but old Upton Park before they built the West End as well. It's got Ken's Cafe in it. And it's not just that. He's tapped into a bygone era with imagery. he couldn't get a lot of the footage for this, so what he's had to do is had to hand draw a lot of it, and he's captured it. You know, be it shops that have gone out of existence now, cars, confectionery, food, the music, the 70s music as well. Because really, this film, Len is a Len will have his own ideas what this film's about, but it's what this film's about to me. This film's about two things to me. This is about the run-up to the FA Cup, to us winning the FA Cup in 1980, and it's everybody's stories, and they are great stories. And it's also about John Lyall. I love the nostalgia it gives. I'm sure he meant to do it because he was hand drawing it, but the country was on its arse in the 70s, in the late 70s. Tax was up at 83%. That's the highest rate of tax. I think even for low rate of tax was 35 to 40%. Power cuts, the trains weren't running. It was crazy. It was a depressing place to be. Lots and lots of strikes, and a lot of the joy anybody got in life was probably from the football. And the football was a real community feel about it. The players were invested in the community as well, in a way that clearly they're not now, and they will never be now. Remember, the players used to come to our school. I used to live in Ilford, about 5 miles away. Who did I see at the school? Well, Jeff Hurst was spoke about there, funny enough, but he was already an ex-player there. Benny Bonds used to come all the time. John Lyall used to come up. I don't think I ever spoke to him, but he came up. Ray Stewart, they used to bring the FA Cup up. You have your photo taken with it. They bring it around the school. And pass it round. If you can imagine it wouldn't happen now because we haven't got any cups. But that's what used to happen. I used to go and play football in the Alvin Martin, who features heavily in this video. I'm going to show a clip from that in just a second. I used to go and play in his football academy, which was in Wanstead, which wasn't far away. I used to go and play in that. But there was so much access to the players. And what this allowing us to do is to tap into some of that old stuff, and there are some wonderful, wonderful stories. Let me just play the Alvin bit now.
I came down to West Ham in 1974, and it was a month after Bobby Moore had left the club. And I think that West Ham was a lot of other people's second team. It was always a popular team. And I think the fact that Bobby Moore played for West Ham was a massive thing. And look, we had 3 World Cup winners, Jeff Hurst and Martin Peters. But Bobby Moore was the golden boy. He was the one that had also lifted the World Cup for England. And I'd always, I think, connected with not just West Ham fans, but football fans in general. You know, a terrific role model. From the moment I walked into the club, his name was used constantly by the then youth team coach Ronnie Boyce, who played with Bobby, all the way through to John Lyall. So forever giving examples of how great he was, how he acted, how he trained, how he carried himself. So I think Bobby Moore must take an enormous amount of credit for the fact that West Ham as a club throughout the world, not just in England, was a club that everybody knew, connected to, and also respected, definitely. And I think as a kid in Liverpool, when I got the opportunity to come down and have a trial for West Ham and QPR, so I had 2 trials, and QPR asked me to go back. As soon as West Ham said, we want to offer you an apprentice professional contract, there was only one winner.
And he speaks so well, Alvin, and Len has made such a wonderful film. As I said, it's you take out of this what you want. And I'm not doing this I'm doing this because my mate has asked me to do a a promo. This is not one football. This is not adverts on the thing. Look, I mean, I hold my hands up. Hammers Chat, we lost our sponsor. We lost Asper's Casino 3-4 months ago. We've been scraping. We've been scraping around. This has become quite an expensive endeavour. So yeah, we do. I do push sponsorship. We do push sponsors. We're trying to get a little bit of money back into the make up for the money that we lost. This is not about that. This is about me talking about my mate's video. And it's I should probably tell you now, it's available at westhamfilm.com, and it's available on Amazon. If you just search on Amazon for West Ham Film, it'll put up there. It's £1.99. But he spent thousands of hours doing this. One of them, he was desperate to get David Cross involved. David Cross was his hero. And eventually got hold of David Cross, and they were trying, I'm talking about Len here, by the way. Len was trying to meet up with him so as he could do the filming to make this documentary, to make this film. And David Cross, he just couldn't make it down. So in the end, David Cross invited him up to his house. He ended up staying around David Cross's house and going to the boozer with him. He stayed up there. He stayed over his house one night, but they got on so well, actually, then completely mucked up the filming. I think it was the sound, actually, rather than the filming. And they recorded him. He'd done a couple of hours filming with him, got all these memories on tape and all the rest of it. And he had to say to him the very next day, he had to say, look, sorry, Crossy, mate. We need to do it again. So, and he did do it again. And in the process of all this, he's met so many people. And I think the film, as I say, just allows you to attach yourself with that bygone. I know I keep saying bygone era, but it really is, and it's really amazing how into the FA Cup they all were as well. And I don't think we would have won it if they weren't. There was a genuine excitement, even when I was growing up, and depending on how old you are, when we were growing up, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 channels. I remember Channel 4 being made. So I remember life before Channel 4 as well, but there weren't many channels. The football wasn't on very much, and the FA Cup draw was a massive thing. Absolutely huge. Everyone was really buzzing, really excited. And you were as public and you were as fans, but the players were excited. The players desperately wanted to win the FA Cup. It was the main trophy. And clearly those days are just gone. It pains me to say it, actually. The other day, last night, somebody messaged me and said, Gonzo, do you know that what do you think of the cup draw? I said, cup draw? What cup draw? I didn't know. Not only did I not know who we'd drawn, I didn't know the draw was taking place. So I'm part of that. I'm part of that. But what you had back then was a real community football club where the local community would go to the game, and as somebody says in one of the interviews in the game, the local mayor, I guess it was the mayor of Newham, turned around to Phil Parks and said when West Ham win, it has a huge impact on productivity in the local area. All the businesses are buzzing down Green Street, and productivity is up because everybody that lived in the local community used to go to the games. And so we're just looking at 77, 78, 79, 80 here. I know for some of you that will seem like a million years ago, but for me it doesn't. It doesn't. It's a time that I remember that's in my mind. And now it's gone from a local community game where a lot of the local community don't even go to the games. It's worldwide. It's now a worldwide brand. It's worldwide games. So those days are gone. So you're never going to get those days back. But what this film does, it allows you, well, if you are of my vintage or older, it's going to remind you of the good old days. You know how good Alan Devonshire was. You know how good Trevor Brooking was. You remember Ray Stewart taking a penalty. You know about Phil Parks. You know about all these things. But if you don't, this film is going to show you what everyone else has been banging on about. And, in my humble opinion, I'm not just saying this because my mate made it, but my humble opinion, it's being done in an entertaining and a good way. And they're good stories. I've got something, I've got a bit of footage, actually, which I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know what video to put it in. I don't know how much to say. Okay, the last season at Upton Park, that's why I'm going to put some footage in of me at Upton Park. The last season at Upton Park, we had a bit of access. And I spent a day down there. I got asked, the club asked me to come up, and I had to, they asked me to run their Snapchat. Was it Snapchat or Instagram? Whatever, the one that disappears after 48 hours. But they asked me to go up and run the club's Snapchat Instagram, whatever it is, for a day. I said, yeah, I'd absolutely love to. They gave me a camera. They let me run around, basically. And they said, right, if you do this for the day, then you can go and get stuff for your own channel and your own stuff as well, your own footage. Right, I've basically come around from the dugout here. You can see I'm just walking past the section where this is the Trevor Brooking, but we're going to where the away fans congregate, which is there. But the reason I'm boring you silly and taking you here is because this is where I stood when we had our first, well, when I had my first game. And the first game I ever attended was 10-0 against Bury in the Milk Cup. That's fine, I'll just do it this way. Right, this is where I stood for my first ever game. The seats weren't here, it was all standing, as I said. Stood here with my dad. It was in the Milk Cup 1983 against Bury. And what a sight it was. First time I came out, I couldn't believe how green the grass was. It was amazing. I've got a programme from that day, actually. And there it is. Milk Cup, which is now the League Cup. That's Phil Parks, great goalkeeper. We signed him for, I think it was $500,000 from QPR, which was a world record for a goalkeeper. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. That's a little blast from the past. I do have other footage there. Got a lot of stuff of crowd behind the scenes at Upton Park. I was quite fortunate. I was quite lucky. And I just think, you know, bearing in mind everything that's happened to the club, this is the right timing for this film. So I would encourage anybody that's not watched it to go and watch it. It's $1.99. Believe you me, he's not even covering his costs for this. He's had to hand draw so many animation sequences because he couldn't get the rights to certain stuff. My mate Alan has had to recompose some of the music on it because so it doesn't get copywritten, and there's so much work's gone into it. Believe you me, it's not even going to cover his costs. But I'd like to see the film do well. I want to see the film do well because I want it to do well because I want to see more West Ham films. As he will tell you himself, as Kane Tanlin will tell you himself, there is a very, very good reason why not many West Ham films get made. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the video. We got a game later on this evening. I'm gonna play you out with another trailer from the film, and so I'll just say what is it? westhamfilm.com. The link is in the description below. Go and give it a look. Good luck tonight. Good luck tonight, West Ham. I'll see you back tomorrow. I guess I'll be talking about the game.
The atmosphere.
I just loved it.
The noise.
They're the best fans in the world as far as I'm concerned. The chicken, man.
Oh, it turned on me.
Like being next to you on the wing, you know.
They'll let you know.
Overall, I think they're always happy with me.
They'll let you know if you're not putting it in.
Playing for West Ham was something that John Lyle kind of gave me an insight into.
There's always going to be somebody better than.
We were that confident.
You always know it's going to be a football game. You know, it's a good game of football.